I didn't know my marriage would unravel over a birthday gift. Not because of cheating, not because of money, not because of another woman, but because my husband refused to give back a necklace that wasn't his. My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm 28, and 2 years ago, I thought I had married a practical, steady, slightly reserved man named Marcus Bennett. He worked in accounting, he wore neutral ties, he triple-checked spreadsheets for fun. He called his mother every morning like clockwork. I thought I understood him. Then, on my birthday, his mother, Helen Bennett, sent me an $800 gold necklace with a diamond pendant and a matching bracelet. It was the first time she had ever given me something that felt intentional, expensive, personal. Marcus took pictures of me wearing it at dinner. He kept saying, "See, she finally accepts you." The next morning, the jewelry was gone from my nightstand. I found my husband in the bathroom, staring at himself in the mirror, adjusting my necklace around his neck. He didn't look guilty. He looked proud. "I just wanted to see how it felt," he said. That was the moment something shifted. Within weeks, he was wearing it to work. Within months, he lost his job. Then he sued his company for discrimination. Then he blamed me when he lost everything. And somewhere between police officers standing in our bedroom and divorce papers sliding across the table, I realized something terrifying. It was never about jewelry. It was about identity, control, validation, and a man who would rather lose his career, his family, and his marriage than admit he needed help. If someone had told me a diamond necklace would destroy my life, I would have laughed. I'm not laughing anymore. Before everything exploded, my life looked normal. The kind of normal you don't think twice about until it's gone. I was 28, living in Denver, working as a graphic designer. Not the glamorous kind you see on social media, more like long hours, picky clients, last-minute revisions, and the quiet pride of seeing your work out in the world anyway. I liked structure. I liked predictability. I liked knowing what tomorrow would look like. Marcus was 31, an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. He was the responsible one in our relationship, at least on paper. The kind of man who packed lunch in labeled containers. The kind of man who believed you could fix almost anything if you just followed the rules. We met 3 years ago at a friend's birthday party. I remember him because he didn't try too hard. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room. He stood near the kitchen island, holding a soda, listening more than talking. When I made a joke about how birthday parties in your late 20s felt like networking events disguised as cake, he laughed, quietly, like he didn't want attention. He asked for my number at the end of the night, not in a smooth way, more like he surprised himself doing it. Dating Marcus felt safe. He was consistent. If he said he'd call at 8, he called at 8. If he promised dinner on Friday, he planned it on Tuesday. He didn't play games. He didn't disappear for hours. After a couple of messy relationships before him, it felt like stepping into warm light. But there was always one constant in his life that came before everything else: his family. His mom, Helen, lived about an hour away in a house she inherited from her parents. His sister Diana moved back in with Helen after she got laid off from her marketing job. The three of them were tightly bound. Daily phone calls, a group chat that never went quiet, inside jokes I wasn't part of, decisions that somehow included Helen's opinion even when they had nothing to do with her. At first, I told myself it was sweet. Then we got engaged, and Helen changed. It was subtle, like a temperature drop you only notice when you walk into a room. She started making comments that sounded harmless if you didn't listen closely. "Marcus used to call me every morning before you. He used to spend every weekend here. I'm just not used to sharing my son." Marcus would laugh and squeeze my hand under the table like it was no big deal. "She's just protective," he'd say later. "That's how she shows love." Diana wasn't warm either. She had this way of smiling without her eyes. She'd look me up and down like she was quietly grading me. One Christmas, she handed me a cookbook titled Cooking for Beginners and asked, very casually, if I even knew how to follow recipes. Marcus told me I was being sensitive. I tried. I really tried. I went to Sunday dinners. I brought dessert. I asked Helen about her garden, her books, her stories. I wanted to fit into their world because I loved Marcus and because I genuinely believed that if I kept showing up, eventually it would soften. But the pattern was always the same. Helen would push, Diana would needle, and Marcus would minimize. The worst moment before my birthday happened 6 months ago. We were at Helen's house for Sunday dinner. She served everyone, except me. When Marcus asked where my plate was, Helen blinked like she'd been caught doing something small. "Oh, I forgot you were coming," she said. Then she added, with a thin smile, I assumed you were on one of your healthy diets again. I ate crackers while everyone else ate a full meal. On the drive home, my hands shook in my lap and Marcus said, You're overthinking it. That's the marriage I was in when the jewelry box showed up on my birthday. A marriage where I kept swallowing discomfort, telling myself I was being mature, telling myself love meant patience. So when Helen suddenly sent me an expensive necklace and bracelet, it felt like a miracle. Like a door finally opening. And Marcus practically glowed with relief, like he'd been waiting for proof that I belonged. I didn't understand then that the gift wasn't an apology. It was a spark. And my husband was dry wood. The jewelry didn't destroy my marriage overnight. It started quietly, almost harmlessly. The morning after my birthday, I woke up and reached toward the nightstand where I'd carefully placed the necklace and bracelet in their velvet box. Empty. At first, I assumed I had moved them. I checked the dresser, the bathroom counter, the drawer by the bed. Marcus, I called. He didn't answer. I found him in the bathroom, standing in front of the mirror, wearing my necklace. The diamond pendant rested against his chest. The bracelet circled his wrist. He was adjusting the chain slightly, tilting his head, studying his reflection like he was seeing himself for the first time. He looked absorbed. When he noticed me, he startled, but not in a guilty way, more like he'd been caught daydreaming. I just wanted to see how it looked, he said quickly. It's really beautiful. I stood there for a second, unsure how to react. Okay, I said slowly, but you could have asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. I was embarrassed. I didn't want you to think I was weird. I walked closer, studying him. He didn't look ashamed. He looked curious, almost excited. It's not weird, I said carefully. If you like jewelry, that's fine, but those were given to me. I know, he replied. I felt something when I put them on, like confidence, like I wasn't invisible. That word stuck. Invisible. I told him we could talk about it later. That was my mistake. I didn't define boundaries clearly because I didn't want to make a big deal out of something that seemed small. But it wasn't small. 2 days later, he wore the bracelet to work. It's subtle, he insisted, pulling his sleeve down. No one will notice. They noticed. His coworkers asked about it. He told them it was a gift from his family. He said it made him feel connected to them. Connected. When I asked if I could wear it to a friend's dinner that weekend, he hesitated. I've gotten used to wearing it daily, he said. It's part of my routine now. Part of his routine. I stared at him. It was my birthday gift, Marcus. And we're married, he shot back. What's yours is mine, right? That was the first time the word selfish came up. He didn't shout it. He didn't accuse. He just said it softly. I think you're being a little selfish about this. It stung more because of how calm he sounded. The next week, he bought matching gold rings, then small diamond studs, then another chain. He started layering them. At night, instead of talking about our days, he'd scroll through jewelry websites, comparing cuts, reading about craftsmanship, watching videos of men styling high-end pieces. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was fixation. Then Helen called. I was in the kitchen when Marcus answered. I heard him laughing lightly. Yeah, she loved it. It looks amazing. Pause. His expression shifted. Oh, yeah, I wear it sometimes too. Silence. Then he handed me the phone. Helen's voice was polite but tight. Sarah, sweetheart, why is Marcus wearing the jewelry? I felt heat rise in my chest. He's developed an interest in jewelry. I'm trying to be supportive. Another pause. I chose those pieces for you, she said slowly. Specifically for you. I know, I whispered. That call changed something. The next day, Diana called Marcus. I could hear her raised voice through the bedroom door. You're embarrassing, Mom. That word again. Embarrassing. Marcus came out furious. They're being judgmental. They should support me. But it was my gift, I said quietly. He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. You didn't defend me. That's when I understood. This wasn't about style. It wasn't about jewelry. It was about him feeling seen, validated, special. And when his family didn't give him that validation anymore, he turned on the only person left in the room. Me. The real fracture didn't happen the day he wore my necklace. It happened the day he charged $1,200 of jewelry to our joint credit card without telling me. I found out on a Tuesday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing invoices for a freelance project. I logged into our banking app to check whether a client payment had cleared. That's when I saw it. $1,243.87. Aurora Fine Jewelers. My stomach tightened. At first, I thought it had to be fraud. I even checked the date twice. It was from that afternoon. Marcus came home about 10 minutes later. He walked in wearing 3 new chains layered over his shirt. 2 rings. Gold studs in both ears. He looked triumphant. Do you like them? He asked. I closed the laptop slowly. You spent over $1,000. He shrugged out of his jacket. I needed pieces that felt like me. From our joint account? He stiffened immediately. I work hard. I'm allowed to buy things. That wasn't the point, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. We've been saving for a vacation. We talked about this. It's my money too, he snapped. Why does everything have to be approved by you? I stared at him. I didn't say you needed approval. I said we discuss big purchases. That's what married couples do. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. So now I need permission to express myself? There it was again. Expression. Identity. Every boundary I tried to set turned into me controlling him. I inhaled slowly. Marcus, this started with my birthday gift. I supported you exploring jewelry, but this is different. He stepped closer, jaw tight. You just don't like that I'm confident now. My heart dropped. Confident? You think I'm threatened by jewelry? I asked quietly. I think you liked being the only one who stood out, he said. Now I'm getting attention too. The words felt surreal. That night, we slept on opposite sides of the bed. The next morning, he wore everything to work. Every chain, every ring, every earring. By Friday, his supervisor had called him into 2 separate meetings. He came home furious. They said clients complained, he told me, pacing the living room, that my appearance is distracting. What did they ask you to do? I asked carefully. Remove most of it during office hours. And I told them I wouldn't change who I am to make other people comfortable. My pulse quickened. Marcus, accounting firms have dress codes. They're discriminating against me, he said flatly. For wearing multiple diamond chains to client meetings? It's self-expression. It's a corporate office, I replied before I could stop myself. He looked at me like I had slapped him. You're supposed to be my partner, he said. I am your partner, I said, voice trembling now, which is why I'm worried. Worried about what? That you're blowing up your career over jewelry. That was the first time I said it out loud. Blowing up. He stared at me, breathing hard. You sound just like my mother. That sentence landed like a punch. I swallowed. Maybe she's worried too. He grabbed his keys. You don't get it. Then help me understand. But he was already walking out the door. 3 days later, he lost his job. The final straw had been a meeting with an important client. Marcus had shown up wearing all his jewelry again, despite prior warnings. The client filed a complaint. The company terminated him for violating dress code policy after documented warnings. When he came home that afternoon, his face was pale but rigid with defiance. They fired me. The room felt smaller. For discrimination, he added quickly. I'm going to sue them. I sat down slowly. You're serious? Absolutely. They can't police my identity. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, Marcus, this is escalating. It escalated because no one supports me, he shot back. No one. Not his boss, not his mother, not his sister, and now not me. But what he couldn't see was this. I wasn't against him. I was against watching him burn everything down and calling it empowerment. That night, as he drafted emails to lawyers and posted long rants on social media about discrimination, I sat in the bedroom holding the original velvet box. The necklace inside felt heavier than it had on my birthday. This wasn't about style anymore. This was obsession. And it was only getting worse. The night Marcus told me he was going to sue his company, I didn't argue anymore. I was too tired. He sat at the dining table, laptop open, typing aggressively. Every few seconds, he muttered under his breath about corporate oppression and narrow-minded environments. His phone buzzed constantly with notifications from the social media post he had just published, a long dramatic statement about being fired for self-expression. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching him. This was the same man who once color-coded our budget spreadsheet, the same man who double-checked restaurant reviews before booking dinner. Now he was unemployed and acting like it was a moral victory. I walked over slowly and sat across from him. Marcus, I said softly, can we just pause for a second? He didn't look up. I can't pause. This is important. I know it feels important. That made him finally look at me. Feels important? He repeated. It is important. I'm not minimizing it, I said carefully, but we need to talk about reality. His jaw tightened. You mean money? Yes, money. I swallowed. You were our primary income. My freelance work helps, but it's not stable. We have rent, insurance, utilities. He closed his laptop sharply. So now I'm a burden. That's not what I said. That's what you meant. The conversation twisted like that every time. I would raise a practical concern. He would turn it into an attack on his identity. I'm worried, I said finally. Not angry, not judging, just worried. He leaned back in his chair and studied me. You think I'm crazy? The word hit harder than I expected. No, I said immediately. I think you're hurting. He blinked. For a second, something fragile crossed his face, but it disappeared just as quickly. I'm fine, he said. Everyone else is the problem. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I replayed the last few months in my mind. The bathroom mirror, the $1,200 charge, the meetings at work, the way he lit up when strangers complimented his jewelry. There was something desperate about it, like he was chasing a version of himself he couldn't access any other way. The next morning, I suggested counseling. We were drinking coffee in silence when I said it. Maybe talking to someone would help. He froze mid-sip. There's nothing wrong with me. I didn't say there was. You implied it. I said talking to someone might help process what you're feeling. What I'm feeling, he repeated flatly, is that everyone in my life wants me smaller. The sentence hung in the air. Smaller. I don't want you smaller, I said quietly. I want you stable. That was the first time he stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly across the floor. You just want me to go back to being the boring accountant who does what he's told. I want you employed, I said before I could soften it. His face hardened. You're ashamed of me. That accusation pierced deeper than anything else. I'm scared, I whispered. He didn't respond. He grabbed his phone and left the apartment for hours. When he came back, he was calmer, but distant. Over the next week, I tried to hold everything together. I took on extra freelance projects. I updated my resume and started applying for full-time positions quietly, just in case. I paid bills early to avoid overdrafts. I moved money around in our savings. Marcus, meanwhile, became consumed with his lawsuit. He contacted a lawyer who told him his case was weak. He called the legal system biased. He started drafting complaints to the state labor department. He posted more online, longer posts, more dramatic. Photos of himself in layered jewelry with captions about courage and authenticity. Comments were mixed. Some supported him. Most were silent. The silence bothered him more than criticism. One evening, I came home from a client meeting and found him in our bedroom, going through my jewelry box. My stomach dropped. He had everything laid out on the bed. My grandmother's ring, the pearl earrings my aunt gave me for graduation, a delicate silver chain I wore on our wedding day. He was holding my grandmother's ring up to the light. What are you doing? I asked, my voice barely steady. He didn't look embarrassed. I'm exploring. Exploring what? Myself. I walked forward slowly. That ring is from my grandmother. I know, he said. It's meaningful. That's exactly why you shouldn't be wearing it without asking. He looked up then, frustration flashing across his face. Why are you so possessive? Possessive. I felt something inside me crack slightly. This isn't community property, I said quietly. It's mine. We're married, he shot back. Married people share. There's a difference between sharing and taking. His expression darkened. You've never supported this, he said. Not really. I stared at him. I had defended him to his mother, to his sister, to myself. But because I wouldn't surrender every boundary, I was unsupportive. That night, for the first time, I didn't cry. I just sat at the edge of the bed and realized something terrifying. I couldn't save him from himself, and if I kept trying, he would drag me down with him. The breaking point didn't happen in one dramatic explosion. It happened in layers. Small humiliations, sharp words, bank notifications at midnight. 3 days after I found Marcus wearing my grandmother's ring, I logged into our banking app again. Another charge. $486, legal filing fees. He hadn't told me he officially filed the complaint. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. I had to, he said. If I don't fight this, I'm admitting they were right. And if you lose? I asked. I won't. But he did. Not immediately, not that week. But the spiral was already accelerating. The social media war. Marcus began posting daily updates. Long threads about discrimination. About corporate suppression. About the courage to live authentically. He posted photos in full jewelry. Chains layered thick against his collarbone. Rings catching the light. Studs glinting under the camera flash. The comments were uncomfortable. Some friends reacted with supportive emojis. Some asked neutral questions. Many said nothing at all. Silence became his enemy. People are scared to support me publicly, he said one night, pacing. They don't want backlash. Or maybe they didn't agree. But I didn't say that. Meanwhile, Helen stopped calling. The daily morning phone calls Marcus used to brag about, gone. He tried calling her. She kept conversations short. Diana stopped replying in their group chat. The family that once hovered around him like a protective wall now felt miles away. And instead of asking himself why, Marcus blamed me. If you had defended me properly when Mom asked about the jewelry, she wouldn't be distant. I stared at him. You're angry at your mother, I said quietly. Not me. He shook his head. You turned her against me. That was when I realized something painful. He needed someone to blame, and I was the closest target. Work becomes war. A week later, the Labor Department responded to his complaint. They declined to pursue it. Employers were allowed to enforce reasonable dress codes. Marcus read the email 3 times. Then he slammed his laptop shut. They're protecting corporations. Marcus, I began carefully. No, don't. He stood up abruptly. I'm filing a lawsuit. I felt my stomach drop. With what money? I'll find a contingency lawyer. He did, a young attorney who agreed to take the case, likely because it cost Marcus nothing up front. I later learned experienced employment lawyers had declined, but Marcus interpreted rejections as proof of bias. The financial collapse begins. Without his salary, everything changed. I picked up more freelance contracts. I applied to full-time positions quietly. I started tracking expenses down to the dollar. Marcus did not. He spent hours researching case law. He ordered legal textbooks. He printed documents that stacked across our dining table. He wasn't job hunting. He said finding new employment would weaken his legal position. You're choosing a lawsuit over stability, I said one night. I'm choosing justice, he replied. The word sounded grand, but it didn't pay rent. The family intervention. One evening, my phone rang. It was Diana. We had never spoken alone before. Her voice was tight. Is Marcus okay? I hesitated. He thinks he is. She exhaled heavily. Mom is falling apart. My chest tightened. What do you mean? People in her community have seen his posts. They're asking questions. She's embarrassed. She's stopped going to book club. She barely leaves the house. There it was again. Embarrassed. Has she talked to him? I asked. He won't listen. He says we're against him. Diana paused. Do you think he's having some kind of crisis? The word hung between us. Crisis. I've suggested counseling, I admitted. He refuses. Diana lowered her voice. Mom is willing to pay for therapy. Anything. We just want him back. I swallowed hard. I wanted him back too. But not the version who saw enemies everywhere. The termination. 3 months into the lawsuit, it collapsed. Marcus's former employer had documented every warning. Photos of him at client meetings layered in excessive jewelry. Client complaints. Formal memos. The judge dismissed the case. Marcus was ordered to pay over $5,000 in legal fees. When he came home after the court hearing, he didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just stood in the doorway. They sided with them. My throat tightened. How much? I asked gently. He told me. The number felt like a punch to the chest. We don't have that, I whispered. He looked at me, eyes hollow. I'll figure it out. But there was nothing left to figure out. He had no job, no legal victory, no family support. Only debt. The obsession peaks. That night, he pulled all his jewelry out onto the bed. He stared at it like it had betrayed him. Then he began polishing it carefully, methodically, one ring at a time. You still think this was a mistake? He asked quietly. I hesitated. Yes. He flinched like I had struck him. It was the only time I felt powerful, he said. That sentence broke my heart more than anything else. Powerful. A necklace made him feel powerful. Not his education, not his career, not our marriage. Jewelry. And I realized something terrifying. If he didn't confront why he felt powerless in the first place, he would always chase the next object, the next validation, the next illusion, and I would always be collateral damage. That was the night I made a decision. I didn't tell him. I didn't threaten. I simply waited until he fell asleep, and I quietly gathered every piece of jewelry. I didn't plan it dramatically. There was no shouting, no final warning, no cinematic speech. Marcus fell asleep around 2 a.m., exhausted from polishing his jewelry and rereading court documents like they might rewrite themselves overnight. I lay beside him in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My heart was racing, but my mind felt strangely calm. I wasn't trying to punish him. I was trying to stop the bleeding. Slowly, carefully, I slipped out of bed. The jewelry was still spread across the dresser, chains coiled like gold snakes, rings lined up in perfect rows, earrings resting on velvet pads. I gathered everything. His expensive new pieces, the layered chains, the rings, the studs, and yes, even my birthday necklace and bracelet. I placed them into a soft pouch. My hands trembled, but I didn't hesitate. The next morning, I opened a safety deposit box at the bank. I told myself this wasn't theft. It was intervention. The explosion. Marcus noticed before breakfast. He stormed into the living room, eyes wild. Where is it? I didn't pretend to misunderstand. I moved it. Moved it where? To somewhere safe. His face went pale. You stole my property. It's not stolen, I said quietly. It's protected. Protected from what? He shouted. From you. The silence after that word felt deafening. His breathing grew heavy. You think I can't control myself? I think you're spiraling, I said carefully, and I'm scared. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. You're just like them. Like who? My mother, my boss, everyone who wants me small. I want you stable, I whispered. He turned sharply. I want my jewelry back. I'll give it back, I said slowly, if you agree to see a counselor. His eyes narrowed. So this is blackmail? No, it's a boundary. Give it back, he demanded. Not until you get help. He laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief. You're trying to control my identity. I'm trying to save our marriage. The words slipped out before I could stop them. He froze. For a second, just a second, I saw pain flash across his face. Then it hardened again. If you don't give it back, I'll call the police. My stomach dropped. Marcus, I'm serious. I held his gaze. If that's what you need to do. The police. He came back 2 hours later. With an officer. My legs felt weak as I opened the door. Marcus spoke first. She stole my property and is refusing to return it. The officer looked tired, not aggressive. Ma'am, he said gently, can you explain what's going on? I told him everything. The job loss, the lawsuit, the obsession, the debt. I showed him Marcus's social media posts, the termination documents, the labor decision. The officer sighed. This sounds like a marital dispute, not criminal theft. Married couples share property. I can't force her to hand it over. Marcus stared at him like he'd been betrayed. So that's it? He snapped. You might want to consult a lawyer, the officer said calmly. When the door closed behind him, the apartment felt hollow. You humiliated me, Marcus said. I told the truth. You made me look insane. I didn't use that word. He stared at me, breathing hard. I'm done, he said finally. Done with what? With this marriage. The words landed quietly. Not explosive, just final. I'll file for divorce, he continued, and I won't sign anything until I get my property back. I nodded slowly. I hope you choose counseling, I said. He didn't respond. He packed a bag that afternoon, left without looking back. Alone, the apartment felt enormous after he left. Too quiet, too still. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the indentation where he used to sleep. 2 years of marriage. Gone. Over jewelry. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about jewelry. It was about a man who felt powerless and would rather fight the world than admit it. I cried that night. Not because I missed the chains or the rings, but because I missed the version of Marcus who used to hold my hand during movies. The version who once made spreadsheets for fun. The version who felt safe. Somewhere along the way, that man disappeared, and I had been trying to drag him back alone. That was the darkest realization of all. Love is not enough when someone refuses to see themselves clearly. And for the first time since this began, I stopped trying to fix him. I chose stillness. I chose distance. I chose me. The apartment stayed quiet for days after Marcus left. No jewelry clinking on the nightstand, no late-night rants about discrimination, no pacing footsteps in the hallway. Just silence. At first, the silence felt heavy. Then it started to feel safe. I slept through the night for the first time in months. But the turning point didn't come from peace. It came from a phone call. The call from Helen. 3 days after Marcus moved out, my phone rang. Helen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Our relationship had always been complicated. Tense, polite, but brittle. I answered anyway. Her voice sounded older. Sarah, I heard he brought the police. Yes. A long pause. I'm sorry. The words caught me off guard. For what? I asked quietly. For not seeing it sooner. I leaned against the kitchen counter. I kept thinking it was a phase, she continued. I thought if I ignored it, it would settle. It didn't, I said. No. She inhaled shakily. I bought that necklace to make peace. I thought if I gave you something meaningful, it would show I was trying. You were trying, I admitted. But instead, she said, voice cracking slightly, it triggered something in him. For the first time, I heard not judgment, but guilt. I don't think it was the jewelry, I said slowly. I think it just exposed something that was already there. She was quiet for several seconds. He used to be so steady, she whispered, so practical. He still can be, I replied, if he wants help. Helen told me she had offered to pay for counseling, that Diana had tried too, that Marcus refused because he believed everyone else was the problem. Then she said something that shifted everything for me. You can't save him, Sarah. The sentence landed gently, but firmly. I know, I whispered. No, she said softly, I mean it. I tried saving him his whole life. You'll exhaust yourself. For months, I had felt like I was fighting alone. Hearing his mother admit that I couldn't fix him lifted something heavy from my chest. The court decision. 2 weeks later, the official dismissal of Marcus's lawsuit arrived. He texted me first. They dismissed it. No anger in the message. Just flat. Then another text. I have to pay their legal fees. Over $5,000. He called that evening. He sounded smaller. Not defeated, but cracked. I was sure I'd win, he said. I know, I replied gently. They said the company had every right. I didn't say I told you so. Instead, I asked quietly, what are you going to do now? There was a long silence. I don't know. It was the first honest answer he had given in months. That was the moment I realized something had shifted. Not in our marriage, but in him. For the first time, the world wasn't the villain. Reality had broken through. Meeting at the bank. A week later, Marcus asked to meet. Public place, neutral ground. We chose the bank. He looked thinner, less polished. He was still wearing jewelry, but only one simple chain. No layers, no rings stacked across every finger. "I've been seeing someone," he said quietly as we sat in the bank's small office. My heart skipped. "You're dating?" He shook his head quickly. "A counselor." Relief washed through me. "I started after the case was dismissed," he continued. "I needed to understand why I couldn't stop." That sentence mattered. He continued slowly. "I felt invisible, at work, with my family, even with you sometimes. The honesty hurt, but it was real. The jewelry made me feel noticed," he admitted. "Important." I nodded. "I know." He looked up at me, eyes glassy. I destroyed everything over that feeling. There it was. Responsibility. We opened the safety deposit box together. When he saw all the jewelry laid out, he didn't look triumphant. He looked ashamed. "I can't believe I chose this over you," he whispered. I didn't respond right away. Because here was the hardest truth. I still loved him. But love doesn't erase damage. "I'm glad you're getting help," I said softly. He nodded. "I don't expect you to take me back." That hurt more than I expected. "I don't think we can rebuild this," I said gently. "Too much trust is gone." He closed his eyes briefly. "I understand." And in that moment, something inside me clicked into place. This wasn't about winning. It wasn't about punishment. It was about recognizing that healing doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means stepping away before you lose yourself. That day, I gave him the jewelry back. Not because he demanded it, but because I no longer needed to hold it hostage to save him. He had finally chosen help, and I had finally chosen myself. After the meeting at the bank, everything moved quietly. There was no dramatic courtroom showdown, no screaming matches, no last-minute reconciliation, just consequences. Marcus sold most of the jewelry within 2 weeks. He kept one simple gold chain, the smallest one, and told me he wanted it as a reminder. Not of the obsession, he said, but of how far I fell. The rest went to pay legal fees and overdue bills. It still wasn't enough. He had to take a part-time job at a retail electronics store, minimum wage compared to his old accounting salary. The first time he texted me from his break room, he wrote, "I never thought I'd start over like this." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Starting over is still forward. I meant it, but I didn't mean we were starting over together. His family. Helen reached out again. This time not with guilt, but gratitude. "Thank you for trying," she told me over coffee one afternoon. We met without Marcus, just the two of us. She looked exhausted, but softer. "I was angry at you at first," she admitted. "I thought you were overreacting." "I know," I said gently. "But when he lost his job, and then the lawsuit, I realized you were the only one who tried to intervene early." She stirred her coffee slowly. "I raised him to seek approval," she confessed quietly. "From me, from teachers, from employers. I didn't realize how fragile that made him." That sentence stayed with me. Fragile. Diana was cautiously reconnecting with him too. "He's calmer," she told me in a brief phone call, "but we're taking it slow." The family that once turned cold had thawed, but carefully. No one was pretending nothing happened. Trust had cracks now. The divorce. I filed for divorce 6 weeks after Marcus moved out. He didn't contest it. We had no children, no shared property beyond the apartment lease, and some furniture. It was administrative. Strangely unemotional. We met once to sign paperwork. He looked healthier than before, still tired, but grounded. "I'm sorry," he said quietly as we stood outside the courthouse. "I know," I replied. "I wasn't ready to hear you," he admitted. "I thought you were attacking me." "I wasn't," I said softly, "and I was scared." He nodded. "I see that now." There was no hug, no dramatic goodbye, just mutual understanding that sometimes damage is irreversible, even when both people finally understand it. The divorce finalized a month later. 2 years of marriage, reduced to signatures and stamped documents. My life after. While Marcus was fighting his lawsuit, I had been quietly rebuilding. I accepted a full-time position at a marketing agency. Steady salary, health insurance, structure. I started therapy too, not because I felt broken, but because I needed to untangle the guilt. The guilt of leaving, the guilt of hiding the jewelry, the guilt of not trying harder. My therapist said something that changed how I viewed everything. Supporting someone doesn't mean sacrificing your stability. I had confused loyalty with endurance. I thought love meant absorbing chaos. It doesn't. It means standing beside someone, not underneath their collapse. I also began dating again, slowly. A teacher named Daniel, kind, stable, thoughtful. On our 3rd date, I told him the full story. He didn't laugh, he didn't judge, he didn't analyze Marcus. He simply said, "That must have been exhausting." And I realized how long it had been since someone centered my experience instead of defending someone else's behavior. Marcus's reality. Marcus texted occasionally. Updates. I sold most of it. I'm in counseling twice a week. I paid off half the legal debt. He never asked to get it back together again. I think he understood that chapter had closed. Once he wrote, I think I was trying to build confidence externally instead of internally. That was the most self-aware thing he had ever said. He's rebuilding slowly. Retail job, therapy, repaired but cautious relationship with his mother and sister. No lawsuit, no grand statements about discrimination. Just quiet progress. But progress without me. The final consequence. In the end, no one won. Marcus lost his career, his financial stability, and his marriage. Helen lost her illusion that her son was unshakable. I lost the man I married. But here's the truth. The collapse didn't happen because I took jewelry away. It happened because Marcus refused to examine why he needed it so desperately. And when reality forced him to confront it, everything he had built on denial crumbled. That's the real fallout. Not the jewelry, not the lawsuit, the refusal to self-reflect. And through all of it, I stayed standing. Not because I was stronger, but because I chose not to go down with him. It's been almost a year now. The necklace Helen gave me still sits in my jewelry box. I don't wear it often. Not because I resent it, but because it reminds me how quickly stability can dissolve when someone refuses to confront their inner fractures. Sometimes I take it out and hold it in my palm. It's beautiful, delicate, harmless. It was never the villain. Marcus and I text occasionally. Short updates. Polite, calm. He's still in therapy, still working retail while applying for accounting positions again. Slowly rebuilding. He told me recently he doesn't wear much jewelry anymore. Just that one simple chain, the smallest reminder. He said it helps him remember not to chase validation in objects. I hope that's true. As for me, my life feels steady again. I wake up without tension in my chest. I sleep without waiting for an argument. I make financial decisions without checking whether they'll trigger someone else's insecurity. Daniel, the teacher I mentioned, is gentle in a way that feels grounded, not fragile. He listens. He asks questions. He doesn't compete for attention or confuse identity with defiance. And the biggest thing I've learned through all of this, you cannot love someone into self-awareness. You cannot argue someone into accountability. And you cannot sacrifice your own stability trying to rescue someone who refuses to look inward. For months, I thought hiding the jewelry made me controlling. Now I understand it made me decisive. There's a difference. Marriage is partnership, not emotional babysitting. Support is not the same as surrender. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting to keep someone. It's letting them fall, so you don't fall with them. The jewelry is still here. The marriage is not. And I'm okay. Better than okay. Stronger. Not because I endured chaos, but because I walked away from it. That's my story. And that's the lesson I wish someone had told me sooner.